Together we can.
Juntos podemos.
Together we can.
What can we change?
Can we change a city?
A nation?
The world.
Can we change the world?
As iron sharpens iron.
So one man sharpens another.
We are God's people.
We are God's people.
Beloved of our Father.
Entrusted with a mission.
To share His love with the world.
Together, we can.
Together we can.
Together we can.
Tunaweza kutimiza wote pamoja.
Together we can.
You go into the store and all of a sudden there is Christmas music on. And it just doesn't stop until Christmas for 2 months. And any store you go to, there is Christmas music. After a while, it drives me nuts so much I can't go to the stores anymore. Because I know that they really don't care about Jesus. They just want to cater to us, those of us who are Christians, so we would go in there and buy stuff. One other thing that irritates me a lot is every 4 years we have elections in this country and politics. And you can't watch TV anymore in peace. We are bombarded with thousands of commercials against this president or against this other challenger. And the conversation in this country is just so angry and just so almost violent. And you got people on one side, they want to kill all the liberals. And you got people on the other side, they want to kill all the conservatives. And you just, I mean, it's just sickening, isn't it? It is sickening to me how divided we are in this country. Now, I come from the old country, first generation. You all come from the old country, but you all come as a second or third generation. I come from the old country as a first generation. And I look at what's going on in this country, and I'm just wondering to myself, these people are really nuts. They are. Because they don't know what they got. In the old country, we had one party, and you could go vote for them. And it was always the same candidate. And he had the title of being the president for life. We got countries out there where you can vote for either Saddam Hussein or his nephew. We don't know how good we got it here in this country, regardless of who comes into power. We don't know how good and how wonderful this country is, regardless of whether the Republican is in the White House or the Democrat. It just doesn't matter. We still have one of the best countries in the whole world. And we just don't get it. We become so angry at each other, and we become so, this dialogue and this conversation becomes just so crazy. And you know what bothers me even more? Is that this kind of an attitude has filtered down into our Seventh-day Adventist church. And in our Seventh-day Adventist church, we have now people on the right, and we have now people on the left, and we have people who could really be labeled as Tea Party Seventh-day Adventists. That's how far they are on the right. And we have others on the left who are going all the way to the left, and the church is divided. Let's be honest. Our church, Seventh-day Adventist Church right now, is divided. One of the big, huge issues, and I'm going to talk about that next week, is ordination of women. Should women be ordained as pastors? And we are divided over that issue so much that actually the survival of the church is at question. Let me just give you my perspective on this as I am thinking about this whole issue. There is 6 billion plus people in this world. There is 12 to 15 million Seventh-day Adventists in the world. And really, only about 40% of them are attending on any given Sabbath. This is a church here of 500 members, and maybe we got 150 people here this Sabbath in this room, and maybe another, so half of the membership is at church on any given Sabbath. So you take 12, 15 million, you divide it in half, that's 7.5 million people. You know what that represents? That represents maybe 0.1% of the world's population. You know what that tells me? That tells me that really we are a small, insignificant church in this world. Small and insignificant to most people. And if you go down the street right here, you will find out that a lot of people have never even heard of the name Seventh-day Adventist. Now, Jesus, before he left this earth and before he went to heaven, he gave us all one command, didn't he? Who remembers what it was? Please tell me, share with me. Go and teach all nations, preach what? The gospel. What is the gospel? What is the good news? What's the gospel all about? If I ask you to share with me the gospel right now, what would you say? If I said to you, you know what, I'm not a Christian, I don't know, the gospel? What's the gospel? I never even heard the word gospel. Do you realize that there are people out there who don't even know the meaning of the word gospel? If you say gospel to them, they draw the blank. They don't know what gospel is. What is gospel? Tell me, somebody. Hope you know. The good news that Jesus died for us? What was that? Died on the cross for me? So what's so great about that? Jesus died on the cross for me, so what's so great about that? Somebody, please help me out. So I can live, I can have the everlasting life? Do people need to hear that message? Do people need the... Now let me ask you something else. As Christians, now I'm pretending that I'm not a Christian and I don't know nothing about your faith. If I believe in this Jesus of yours, what's that going to do for me? What did it do for you?
The gospel for me is God loves me and I love you.
God loves you and you love me. Okay. What else did this Jesus do for you that's so great? Why should I even try to connect to Him? Why? He gave you peace? Okay, what else? That's good. I like that. I like to have peace in my life. What else? Faith. He gave you faith? What else did this Jesus do for you? He gave you salvation? The love of Jesus? But in every day, when you go to work, when you pay your bills, when you interact with your neighbors, how does this Jesus make a difference in your life? He lives in you. How does He live in you? So people can see how you are, and is that good? If you have peace and joy, people see that, they want the same thing. So you're saying, if I know this Jesus, I'm going to have peace and joy and love, and I'm going to treat people nice. Is that what you're saying? Do people need that in this world? Do they need to know Jesus? So why the heck are we arguing about the ordination of women? Why the heck are we arguing about, you know, whether or not it's okay to drink a cup of coffee in the morning? Go ahead, Sandy. I like that. Thank you so much. We should be all about love and showing the love of Jesus. Let me run through this history a little bit. Uniformity. You understand the difference between unity and uniformity. When the Seventh-day Adventist Church was originally organized, it was organized here in the United States under the leadership of Ellen White and other pioneers that we had in our church. They organized the church, and they came up with the Sabbath. They studied the Bible. They say Saturday is the seventh day. My goodness, it's not a Sunday, it's Saturday. The Bible is clear. We need to call ourselves Seventh-day Adventists. This is a good news. People need to know this. So they said, let's go preach this gospel to people all around the United States. And they did. And then somebody said, you know what? How about we send missionaries to Mexico, and missionaries to South America, and missionaries to Europe? They were excited about this idea that they figured out that Saturday was the Sabbath day. So they send out missionaries to my country and to your country, wherever your fathers came from. And all of a sudden, Seventh-day Adventist Church started growing. But you know what? When they came to my country, the Adventist missionaries from Germany and from the United States, in my country, we didn't have anything. We didn't know how to run a church. So at one point, the church says, you know what? Let's put together a Sabbath school lesson. And we're going to have one Sabbath school lesson for the whole world. So we did that. Now you can go to any Seventh-day Adventist church in the world. Everybody's studying out of the same Sabbath school lesson. They did the same thing with a hymnal. They said, let's put together a hymnal because those people in Africa, they don't know how to sing Christian songs. So now everybody has the same hymnal. Then they said, what about worship format? Okay, we're going to have a worship format, and we don't practice it here in this church, but in most churches you still have some kind of a worship format where the ministers come up front and they sit down and the congregation kneels and then you stand. So they put together the worship format. And everybody around the whole world started using that. And then we said, what about the lifestyle? No smoking, no drinking. We're going to dress properly, modestly, and all of that stuff. So all of a sudden, we as a church created this kind of a uniformity where everybody knew basically how to behave. And then the Seventh-day Adventist Church grew and grew some more, and all of a sudden you have people in other countries where the church just grew, like in Africa and South America. And I went to Mexico a year or two ago, and I was, you know, so excited to be there. And we went to a worship service, you know, and I listened to the music, and it was the same songs that we sing here, except they were translated into Spanish. And the girl that was singing at my meetings, she started singing the songs, and I noticed that I knew all the songs. And then one point she asked me, she says, are you happy with the music? And I said, honestly, not really. She said, why not? I said, I would like to hear your authentic music. Your music from your country. Mexican music. And I said it just like that. I said, I don't want to hear American music here. I like American music when I'm in America. Now I'm in your country, I would like to hear your music. And you know what she sang? She sang some of the most beautiful songs the next several nights that I never heard before, but they were Christian. So what has happened? The church has grown and realized that in these other countries they have their own culture. They have their own music. They have their own way of dress. So what do? Should we all stay the same? Or is it okay to practice those things that appeal to the community where that church is located? We decided in this church some 10 years ago or so to have a contemporary worship service, and a lot of people, when they watch, we are live streaming right now, and maybe somebody from another country is watching and they're looking at this and they can't believe their eyes. There is a guy up there preaching and he doesn't have a suit and a tie on. You know, but we figured out that this was the best approach for our community here. Because in our community, 80% of the men don't even own a suit or a tie. So is it okay to be different and yet at the same time be united? Unity can be good. I'm not saying unity is not good. Unity can be good, but unity is not the same thing as uniformity. Uniformity is when everybody behaves the same way. I come from a communist country. We have a couple of other people here who come from a communist countries, you know, and they understand what I'm talking about. Uniformity is when you force everybody to do exactly the same. Unity is when you have diversity, but you still agree on the mission and the goals of the organization or the church. Unity can be good, but it can also be used as an excuse for evil. And you have Hitler out there, you know, he told all the Germans, he says, we need to be united. And if you were not united with him, he would kill you. If you didn't go along with his agenda, you would disappear. They would shoot you to death. But he was promoting unity of all Germans. We need to be united. If you're not with us, you're against us. I don't like it when people use unity as an excuse to do something that is not right. North Korea. It is so sad for me to watch these North Korean athletes in Olympics right now, and they interviewed several of them, and they said, the great leader has given me the power to do this, and I can't wait to get back home and give my gold medal to the great leader of North Korea. They're all united, brainwashed. Unity can be used for good, but it can also be used for bad things. It can be used as a tactic of delay. We need more studies. Did you know that the ordination of women was approved by the Seventh-day Adventist General Conference in 1891, 130 years ago? I'll show you that next week. Show you the document. But yet people are saying, oh, we need more studies. 130 years ago. Oh, we shouldn't offend others who don't feel this way, so let's not do anything. How many times have you heard that? So unity can be used as a tactic of delaying things that need to happen. Or sometimes it's used as a tactic to keep the status quo, like it was during the time of slavery in this country. There were people and preachers who stood up and he said, oh, we need to be united on this. Why? Because they wanted to keep slavery alive. Let's not change anything. Let's wait. Let's study. Let's see what happens. Unity is not as important as honesty and being right and standing for what you believe. Okay? So it can be used as a tactic of delay. It can be used as an excuse for maintaining status quo, such as was the slavery. About 10, 12 years ago in this church, I'm giving you an example real quick here. In this church, I wanted us to do a children's church because we didn't have one. And I went to a person and I said to them, I think you would be a good leader for the children's church. Would you mind doing it? What do you think? And we chatted a little bit, and this person said to me, yeah, let me think about it. And a week went by, and you know me, when I have an idea, I want it done like 3 weeks ago. And I said, two weeks later, I'm anxious and I'm waiting, and I go over to them and I say, you have an answer for me? And they say, no, we need to, it was a couple, we need to study this some more and think about it. Well, 3 months later, they're still thinking about it. And 6 months later, and 9 months later, and a year later, this is true story. This happened about 10, 12 years ago here, right here in this church. And then we had one conversation about the children's church, and they basically came out against it. What they did to me was they kept putting me off. We need to study it, we need to think about it, but they were really against it. They didn't want to change the status quo. They didn't believe that kids should be over there. So at that point, I got pretty mad, and I went to another person, Gina. You all remember, some of you remember Gina. And I said, Gina, I need this children's church off of the ground. And within 2 weeks, we had a children's church. And we still have it to this day, 10, 11 years later. So sometimes this idea for unity can be used as an excuse for maintaining the status quo. Sometimes it can be used for promoting an agenda. Calls for unity are sometimes calls for pushing through somebody's agenda. So, you know, you have somebody back in the old country. We had a situation one time where the president of the union was about to be replaced, and he says, you know what, we need to be united on this, and we need to pray more about this. And he just did not want to leave his post. He didn't want to give it up. So he called for unity. Well, he was replaced eventually. So unity can be a good thing, but it can also, in the hands of the wrong people, it can be used for all kinds of things that don't make any sense. Unity is important, but it's not as important as you standing up for what you know is right. Let me say something else here. Unity. Human nature tends to go against unity. Do you realize this? Human nature tends to go against unity because unity implies conformity. And we all, especially here in America, we live by this motto, don't fence me in. Don't tell me what to do. Human nature tends towards individualism. I want to do as I want to do. I don't want you coming to my house and telling me what to eat or how to dress, or I don't want some other guy, some other pastor from another church coming here and telling me how to run my church, what kind of worship I should have. I don't want that. Human nature tends to go against unity and towards individualism. That's how we are. So as a result, I think, when you put all of these things together, you look at our Seventh-day Adventist church on a global level, and at this point, we can't agree on just about anything. You heard me right. We just cannot agree on just about anything. We are already divided at this point on all kinds of issues. Now, what are some of the most divisive issues in the Seventh-day Adventist church? One of them is worship. Did you know that? Now, keep in mind what I said to you. 15 million Seventh-day Adventists versus 6 billion people, 1/10 of 1%, and here we are arguing about worship. Should we have a traditional worship or should we have a contemporary worship? And even in this church, we went through that so many rounds some years ago. As if one is better than the other, as if one is holier than the other, as if one is going to save you and the other is not. That's how we are arguing about it. And it simply comes from not understanding what worship is. Some people look at the church and they see the Old Testament temple and they see a God who is going to come from heaven, and if you don't smell bad, he's going to kill you because you didn't take a shower before you came into his sanctuary. That's how some people see church, and that's how some people see worship. And that's why in some churches you walk into the lobby and there is a big sign that says absolutely no talking, absolutely no water, absolutely no food in the sanctuary. Because we need to have this extreme fear of God because he's going to kill us. And you know, there are people who believe that. I believe that this is a place where God comes. I do. I believe we should respect it. But I look at it a little bit differently. You know how I see it? Worship can be the Old Testament type of worship where you walk into the temple and if you move the wrong way, you die. Or worship can be you walking up into a field where Jesus is teaching. And you come the way you are. Smelly and sick and tired and full of sin and full of problems and arrogant and sometimes disrespectful and sometimes irreverent. And Jesus still takes you the way you are. Worship can be that too, can it? So in our church here, Arvada, we have decided that the model of going to Jesus is a more acceptable model of worship than assuming that this is some kind of an Old Testament temple, because it's not. This is just a building. This is just a building. And this building means absolutely nothing if God's Holy Spirit is not here. If God's Holy Spirit is not in here, you might as well take these pews out and have a flea market in here. Nobody cares. That's how God looks at this. If His Spirit is not in this building, in my heart and in your hearts, then these are just walls, wood and brick and drywall. Building does not the church make. Your heart does. God's Spirit does. So this is what we disagree about. Worship, drums, music. I mean, wow, my goodness. There is a famous Seventh-day Adventist preacher. You see him on TV. I'm not going to mention his name. They say that's not appropriate to mention another guy's name. So I'm not. But you know, he came out not too long ago with the book, I think, in which he said, if you have drums in the church, the demons are already in that church. And he's a famous preacher. You see him on 3ABN and Hope. He's a Rush Limbaugh of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. You know. And so I'm thinking, there is demons in my church because we decided to have drums just like they had in the Bible? Are you kidding me? How can I support a preacher like that? How can I? I can't. So this is another argument. Music, food. We had a guy, another famous Seventh-day Adventist guy, and you see him on TV all the time, on Adventist TV, who was right here in this church preaching, and he says, you know what, if you don't quit eating meat before Jesus comes, you're not going to heaven. I have it on DVD. And they put these guys on Hope and on 3ABN. And everybody listens to them, and they think that these are legitimate statements. So that's what we are arguing about, whether or not we should have drums in the church, whether or not it's okay to have a hamburger. We are arguing about dress. How should people dress? Should we dress, all conservative, or is it okay to dress a little more modern? I mean, these are the arguments that we have in our church. By the way, one thing that kind of bugged me is this food thing, When I was in Florida, I ate at home just about all the time. Didn't go to any other places because it was vacation. And when I came home to Arvada, I had this craving, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And then I was driving by Taco Bell one day, and then it was all clear. I realized I needed to go in there and get one of those nice little steak fajitas or whatever they have in there. So, I said to myself, let me find out what's really going on in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. How many Seventh-day Adventists do you think, oh, he already put it on the screen? 95%. 95% of Seventh-day Adventists around the world are eating meat, and only 5% are vegetarian. And in the United States, it's 60-40. So in this church, 60% of the people are meat eaters and 40% are vegetarian. We can't even agree on that. But that's an interesting statistic, isn't it? Traditional versus contemporary, conservative versus the liberal. So after all of this, my question to you is, can we even survive as a church? Can we even survive as a church? Well, let me be honest with you. I'm not sure that we can. I am not 100% sure that we can. I hope that we can, but I'm not 100% sure that we can. There is too many divisive, judgmental voices on both sides. Too many. So I'm thinking, how united is our Arvada church here? How united are we? And I'd like to do a test here. How many here are strict vegans? Let's have some fun with this. I want to see some hands. Don't be so shy. How many people here are strict vegans? We got one, and okay. How many people are mostly vegetarian? Okay. How many people do eat meat? Oh my goodness. Oh, did somebody take a picture of that? They're going to look at me and they'll say, Pastor, you're not teaching them right. And I will say, the flesh is weak. How many go to the movies? Okay. How many feel that it's not right for the Christian Seventh-day Adventists to go to the movies? Anybody? There is some who feel that way, absolutely. Now, you start looking right here at this, our church, and you see a division, don't you? You see that we don't agree on all issues. How many ladies here in this church feel it's okay to wear jewelry? I know this is a sensitive one. How many? And how many feel that it's not okay to wear jewelry? Okay, see, we are not together. We are people divided right here in this church. Let me ask you a really touchy one. How many feel it's okay to have lunch in a restaurant on Sabbath? And how many don't? Do you see what I'm talking about? How is it possible that we even like each other? How is it possible that we have been together in this church for so long? I am surprised that we are not already divided and have little worship groups all over the town because we can't stand each other. What about, let me ask you this. This is now a really tough one. How many feel that it is okay to occasionally, if you absolutely have to, work on Sabbath or Friday night? Okay? How many feel that under no circumstances whatsoever it's okay to work on Sabbath? You see the differences? Did you realize that these same people are sitting right next to you in the church for the last 15 years? How many people here feel, I'm going to turn around on this one. How many people here feel that it is okay to have a drink occasionally? Oh, I caught you over there in the back. I went to an elder's, a very prominent elder here in this church. He was a good man. I really liked him. He's no longer around. He passed away. And there was, as I walked into the house, there was a bottle of wine on the table in the kitchen. And I talked, and you know, I pretended that I didn't see it. You know how that happens. You're uncomfortable. You go in there. So I'm sitting in the living room, and all of a sudden, he realized that I knew that that bottle was there. And he came over and he says, "Pastor, you know, my doctor says..." Now, he was a great friend of mine, and I loved him, and he was a part of this church. How many regularly pay tithe? You don't have to raise your hand on this last one. How many regularly support their church with their tithe, and how many don't? Jim knows. Well, and I know too. How many eat a Taco Bell, and how many don't? See? You can go down the list, drink coffee, and how many don't? Okay. How many sometimes go catch a concert in the evening? How many sometimes go catch a rock and roll concert in the evening? Okay. And how many would never do that? Okay. You see what I'm getting at? So we in this church are as far apart from each other that to me it would seem impossible for us to be united on anything. So what do? How do we bring unity back to this church? So I'm standing here, I'm looking at this exercise that we have done, and I have decided in my wisdom now that we are not a united church, and I am thinking, how do we bring unity to this church? Love? How about this? Instead of that, that's too complicated. How about we all decide to become vegetarian? Everybody. Everybody. And if you don't want to, then find another church to worship. Come on. We all become vegetarian. What if I was your pastor, and what if I said to you, guys, I am now on a quest for all of you to become a vegetarian, and if you don't, you're going to have to transfer your membership to another church because we want to be united. We're going to have one empty church. Jimmy's saying bye-bye. Okay, maybe that one is too complicated, too hard. How about I pick another issue? How about I come up one Sabbath to you and I say, hey guys, I have a great idea. Let's sell the church, take the money, and move to Commerce City. Come on, we need to be united on this. Why, if I push those issues, why are they not going to work? Tell me why. Because they are what? They are too divisive. It's not going to work. There is never a chance that I can bring unity to this church if I champion a cause that absolutely is so divisive that it cannot bring any unity to our church. So it is beyond me at this point why some in our church have decided to champion this cause of not ordaining women in the church, when it is one of the most divisive issues that you can ever bring to the church. You say we want unity. If you say you really want unity, what do you do? What do you do if you say you really want unity? What kind of an issue do you champion? Let me ask you a couple of other questions, test questions. What if I say to you, I want to see how many would agree on this? Would it be okay if we all start praying more for each other? How many? I want to see. How many think that this is not a good idea? Look at that. Look at that. 100% agreement. Are there things that we can agree on? 100% agreement. I want to take it a little bit further. How about if I say to you, as a church, let's do what we can to help the fatherless and the motherless. How many would agree with me on that? And how many would say, no, that's not a good idea? My goodness. 100% agreement again. How about if I said to you, it was good for those who went to Haiti to go to help Philip and Maria over there? How about as a church, we help those kids in Haiti again? Can we agree on that? How many, who would say no to that? Anybody? 3 times, 100% agreement. How about if I said, as a church, let's do what we can to help the hungry people around the world who don't live in a country that is so blessed like ours, when you can walk into any corner store and get all the food you want. You got people out there who are literally starving to death. How about we all agree on that? Who would say no? What about this one? What about if I said to you, let's put all of our energy and effort and money and resources into telling people about the sacrifice of Jesus for them? How many would agree on that? And who would say no? How many? 5 so far? 100% agreement? What about this one? If I said to you, what do you guys think if we take time to love each other more and to really show it to each other? How many would agree with that one? I don't think anybody would disagree with that. Unity is not uniformity. Uniformity, when we were a young church and didn't have the resources, uniformity was good. Now, I would never presume to tell a pastor in Mexico City how to run his church. It would never even cross my mind. I would never presume to tell a pastor in Africa or China or Indonesia what sermon to preach, what issues to push in his church. Because I don't want that type of uniformity. I want unity in purpose, unity in Jesus, unity in love. But as an organization, as a church, we need the ability to decide our own course of action. What's the best way to reach people for Jesus here in this neighborhood? Different approaches need to be allowed if we are going to remain united in this church. There is a text that I want to share with you. Colossians 3:14 says, "And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. As a church, we are never going to agree on all issues. Never. And it's okay if we have love for each other. You know what? I spoke today harshly about some of the people who I feel are doing damage to the church. But that does not give me an excuse not to love them. And maybe they don't like what I am preaching. Maybe they don't like how I dress when I preach. But that does not give them an excuse not to love me. We need to love each other whether we agree with people on certain issues or not. As a church, as a Seventh-day Adventist church globally, I think we don't have time to argue and fight about all of these issues that I have mentioned today, when the majority, 99.9% of the world, doesn't know about the Sabbath, doesn't know about the love of Jesus. We cannot afford to spend our time and energy and money on these issues that divide us. We should pick issues that bring us together, just like we did here this morning. I ask you, as members of this church, not to react. When somebody provokes you, when somebody teaches something that you don't like, when somebody goes against your beliefs, don't react. The church is in God's hands. This church is going to survive. God is going to lead it because it is His church. Our job is to love each other, and our job is to connect people with Jesus. That's what our job is. And the only way you can do that's how I'm going to conclude. The only way you can do that is if you yourself are connected with Jesus. And if you're not, then take every possible step to get to know Jesus. I got to say one more thing. And this is my personal feeling. And this is my personal prediction. And I may preach a series of sermons on this this year yet. But I feel that this world is coming to a place where Christianity, Islam, Judaism, all religions will be shook up to their core. I believe that there are things right now happening in this world that are going to shake up the faith of even the most faithful. That's what I believe. And I believe that if you don't know Jesus personally, you're not going to survive. If you don't know Jesus personally, the time is coming when you will give up on your religion, on your faith. That's how bad things will be in this world. Very soon. Very soon. And I'm going to preach about it maybe in September when I come back. I'm going to be one weekend, Labor Day, in Michigan. One of my nieces is getting married and I'm doing the ceremony. But after that, maybe I'll do this series of sermons on what's coming up and how the faith of many is going to be shaken up. Don't allow yourself to get dragged into these fights and arguments and all of this nonsense. Love each other, tell people about Jesus, and God is going to bless you and He's going to bless our church. Thank you for being so patient and listening to me for almost an hour. God bless you. Amen.
How do we define the word unity? After all, we hear it all the time. Unity in jobs, unity in our schools, and unity in our church. But what is the implication behind the word? Is it nothing more than a group of people working, learning, or worshiping together, loosely linked by a common goal or belief? Perhaps unity begins as nothing more than an empty cup, a framework created to house something bigger than itself, a vehicle built to contain a combination of ingredients each with their own special qualities that make them unique, each consisting of elements and properties that make it perfectly suited to fulfill its purpose. Together, each piece makes its own valuable contribution, regardless of its use as a singular item. Individually, each element is by no means worthless, but when combined together by the hands of a skilled creator, they become something wonderful. A delicious blend of unity.